You ever wonder what items will actually cause chaos when everything falls apart? It's not gold, not even ammo. It's the dirt cheap stuff, the kind you walked past 100 times in the store without blinking. But after the collapse, that same $3 item becomes a reason to shout, push, maybe even throw punches. Because once shelves go empty and systems fail, it's not the flashy survival gear that causes conflict. It's the simple household basics that suddenly become priceless. Today, we're counting down 7 of those overlooked products, the ones you'll wish you grabbed before the crowds turn desperate. Before we dive in, just a quick reminder. This channel doesn't push fear or tell anyone what to buy. We just share hard-won lessons and smart ideas. If you've got one of your own, drop it in the comments, because when things go south, sharing knowledge is the only thing more powerful than being prepared. Number 1. Gallon-size water containers, empty with cap. No matter how much you prep, if clean water disappears, everything else falls apart. But in a full-blown collapse, it's not just the bottled water people will rush for, it's the empty containers themselves. Specifically, gallon-sized jugs with tight sealing caps. And when the grid shuts down or municipal supply breaks, these cheap plastic jugs become one of the first things people start fighting over. Here's why. Once you run out of stored water, you need to collect more. Maybe from rain, maybe from a stream, maybe from aid trucks. But without safe, sealable containers to carry and store it, you're stuck. FEMA constantly stresses the importance of clean storage for water, not just for collecting it, but for keeping it free from contamination. Yet no one ever stocks the containers, they just focus on the water itself. During Hurricane Harvey, thousands of people lined up for water deliveries from fire stations and FEMA trucks, but many had nothing to store it in. Some used trash cans, others used old laundry detergent bottles, all unsafe, all prone to leaks and bacterial growth. The smart ones showed up with clean, dry-gallon jugs, and guess what? Stores had already sold out of them. The reason these containers become hot commodities is simple. They're lightweight, stackable, cheap, and versatile. You can fill them with tap water before the outage, or use them to transport water during the aftermath. Some folks even fill them and freeze them ahead of time to preserve fridge temperatures during blackouts, doubling their purpose. When shelves start emptying, people don't just look for what to drink. They look for what lets them store, carry, and ration water for kids, pets, hygiene, and cooking. And the sight of someone grabbing the last few gallon jugs at a store? That's enough to trigger arguments even in normal times. Don't wait for that scramble. Add a flat of empty food-grade gallon jugs to your home kit. Label them clean water only, and store them sealed. You can even grab collapsible water containers, but basic gallon jugs are easier to find and cheap enough to buy in bulk. When it hits the fan, your bottled water will run out. Your filters will take time, but if you've got containers, you've got options. Without them, you're just standing in line praying someone else brought extras. Number 2. Hand pump soap dispensers. In any crisis, dirty hands become deadly. After floods, earthquakes, or mass blackouts, it's not just water or food shortages that spread sickness, it's poor hygiene. And when shared bathrooms, community shelters, or home routines break down, one of the most underappreciated survival tools suddenly vanishes from store shelves: bulk hand pump soap dispensers. These aren't the fancy, scented bathroom pieces. We're talking about the cheap, clear plastic pump bottles, the kind you buy in bulk or refill from giant soap jugs. In normal times, nobody fights over them. But after a collapse, they become essential hygiene stations for homes, neighbors, and public shelters. FEMA's hygiene recommendations emphasize hand washing as a top way to prevent disease outbreaks during and after emergencies. After Hurricane Katrina, dozens of shelters had to deal with outbreaks of norovirus and respiratory infections. One of the primary causes: inadequate soap availability and zero dispenser systems. FEMA and Red Cross workers ended up rigging makeshift hand-washing stations using buckets and soap tied to poles. Now imagine you're trying to protect your family from contaminated surfaces, shared spaces, or shared latrines, and you don't have an easy, controlled way to distribute soap. Bar soaps get grimy fast and spread germs. Reaching into open tubs of liquid soap? That's a breeding ground for bacteria. But a simple pump dispenser controls spread, limits waste, and keeps things clean. Here's why these vanish fast. Nobody thinks to stock them ahead of time. People hoard sanitizer and wipes, not realizing that soap and water are still more effective, and you need a dispenser to make that work efficiently in a group setting. Once panic starts, every cleaning aisle is stripped clean. And the dispensers? Gone within hours. Smart prepping means storing not just soap, but the tools to share it. Grab a few empty dispensers or pre-filled multi-packs. Mark them for clean-only use. Keep one in your bathroom, one in your go bag, and one sealed for emergency setups. They're lightweight, stackable, and can be refilled endlessly, a simple system that becomes priceless when everything gets dirty, fast. When collapse hits, clean hands aren't about comfort. They're about survival, and the guy with a working pump bottle? He's the one people line up behind. Number 3, emergency sealing tape. When the storm passes or the power fails, it's not always the big things that break first, it's the seals. Windows rattle loose, vents open, drafts roll in, floodwater seeps through cracks. That's when people start looking for emergency sealing tape, and by the time they do, it's already gone. Unlike regular duct tape, film or foil sealing tape is made to resist water, heat, and air pressure. It's used to patch insulation gaps, HVAC vents, and vapor barriers, and in a collapse, that makes it a frontline defense for keeping heat in, cold out, or moisture away. But it's not something you'll find on the average shopping list, which is why fights break out fast when the shelves start clearing. In the 2021 Texas freeze, power failed across millions of homes. People scrambled to keep warm without central heating, sealing windows and doors with towels, cardboard, or whatever they had. But those who had foil or vapor barrier tape, they insulated plastic sheeting, sealed broken window frames, and kept warm air trapped inside. That kind of advantage isn't just comfort, it's survival. FEMA doesn't call this tape by name in every guide, but its protective measures for home sealing, bulletins emphasize air leak patching, moisture control, and temporary structural sealing. Contractors use this stuff for long-term fixes, but preppers use it for fast ones. One roll, 60 feet, can seal multiple entry points, line a roof crack, reinforce a makeshift tarp, or seal off an exposed vent. And it's not just for buildings. In crisis zones like Puerto Rico post-Maria, people use this tape to patch water tanks, secure food containers, and even reseal opened emergency ration packs. When the power's out, this tape becomes as valuable as tools because it helps hold everything else together. What triggers fights? Limited stock. Hardware stores don't keep much of it on hand. It's not trendy, and it's more expensive than regular duct tape. But when a few rolls remain and the cold's creeping in, desperate shoppers will snatch it fast sometimes out of each other's carts. Stock it early. Keep one in your tool bin, another in your go bag. Label it. Don't waste it. Because once the collapse hits, this isn't just tape. It's your seal against chaos. Number 4, unprinted canvas painter drive ops. Most people walk right past the stack of canvas drop cloths in the hardware store, thinking they're just for painting walls. But during a collapse, when homes turn into bunkers and open spaces into makeshift shelters, unprinted canvas painter drops become one of the most fought-over items on the floor. Why? Because these budget canvas sheets are a survival multi-tool in disguise. They're not like plastic tarps that rip in wind or crinkle in silence. Canvas is durable, breathable, quiet, and can serve a dozen roles: ground cover, sleeping mat, tent liner, windbreak, dust barrier, or emergency curtain. In natural disasters from post-hurricane shelters in Florida to earthquake zones in Turkey, canvas sheets have been used to divide living spaces, provide shade, and cover broken windows or doors. FEMA and Red Cross setups often rely on them for temporary privacy in crowded shelters. And in a collapse scenario, where families might be crammed together, privacy becomes more than comfort, it's psychological survival. You don't want to sleep under a window that's just covered with newspaper. You don't want to change clothes in a room lit by candlelight with no barrier. Canvas gives you separation, dignity, and insulation, all from something that costs under $20 right now. The unprinted part matters too. Printed or painted canvas may contain dyes or chemical treatments that release fumes when burned or get wet. Unprinted canvas is safer for use indoors or in contact with skin, and that's what people realize after they've already grabbed the wrong version, leading to fights at checkout counters or trades at double value in parking lots. During COVID-era lockdowns, when people built home isolation zones for sick family members, canvas drops were sold out in dozens of stores. DIY rooms, hallway barriers, and window coverings, all made with painter's cloths. And in colder climates, people used them to line their bedrooms, trap heat, and keep out drafts when the furnace failed. They're washable, reusable, and quiet, something you'll appreciate when trying not to draw attention during unrest or curfew. Grab a couple now, roll them tight, and store them flat. You won't need them every day, but when you do, they'll be worth more than their weight in gold. Because when everyone's fighting over tarps, the person with canvas already won. Number 5. Tall rubber plant pots. At first glance, it's just a black plastic pot meant for holding plants. But in a collapse scenario, unused tall rubber plant pots, especially the 2 to 3 gallon size, become some of the most versatile and high-demand containers people fight for once desperation kicks in. Let's break it down. These pots are stackable, lightweight, shatterproof, and designed to hold water, dirt, or bulk weight for long periods without collapsing. When systems fall and plastic buckets or bins vanish from shelves, these become immediate replacements for storing water, carrying supplies, rationing food, or even creating small cooking or washing stations. FEMA doesn't list plant pots specifically, but their supply distribution and shelter planning guidelines repeatedly stress the need for multi-use containers in emergency zones. In post-quake Haiti, and after the 2004 tsunami, aid workers used any durable vessel they could find to distribute grains, hold waste, or manage ration supplies in shelters. And when community kitchens or neighborhood hubs form during long-term blackouts or resource shortages, everyone shows up with containers, but not everyone brings one that's functional. Plant pots fit the bill. They're rigid enough to hold their shape when full, but flexible enough to squeeze into cramped spaces. Their drainage holes can be patched with simple tape, plastic discs, or even layered cloth, converting them into watertight storage in minutes. And their tall profile gives them an edge over shallow bins for storing bulk dry goods like rice, oats, or beans. You can even use them to grow food indoors when access to land is limited. Stack them near windows, fill with soil, and you've got micro-growing stations. In Venezuela's economic collapse, urban families repurposed these exact containers to grow lettuce, tomatoes, and herbs in small apartment balconies, often bartering the produce for eggs or soap. They also serve unexpected roles: stool seating in camp-style shelters, makeshift waste bins when toilets are unavailable, or even hand-washing stations when fitted with a spout. And when aid or bartering kicks in, having 4 or 5 clean, empty containers makes you instantly more valuable to the group than someone holding cash or gear, but with no way to move or divide supplies. So why do people fight over them? Because stores don't carry many once gardening season ends. And in a crisis, once the buckets and Tupperware are gone, these are the next best thing. And sometimes they're even better. Keep a small stack. Nest them. Tape the holes shut in advance. They cost almost nothing now, but later, they'll be worth every desperate trade on the street. Number 6. Extra plastic cutlery bins. When the collapse hits and utilities shut down, washing dishes becomes a problem fast. With limited running water, no dishwasher, and often no hot water, the sink turns into a health hazard. And suddenly, the humble bulk pack of plastic forks, knives, and spoons becomes a hot commodity. We're not talking about party decorations. These are the cheap, utility-grade plastic cutlery packs, the kind people buy for barbecues or catering setups and forget about. But in a collapse, when families are eating canned meals, rotating between shelters, or surviving from a car, these utensils become critical for sanitation, rationing, and morale. After Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico in 2017, it wasn't just food and water that ran short. People had meals, but no way to eat them. FEMA field kitchens used thousands of plastic forks per day, often running out during high-volume distributions. Reusable metal cutlery wasn't feasible. Washing them risked spreading infection. The only way to keep pace was disposable, pre-packed utensils. Here's where things turn tense. Once supply chains collapse, basic cutlery is no longer available at convenience stores or even major retailers. During the early COVID lockdowns, disposable utensil bins were among the first household items to disappear, especially in urban areas where water rationing had already begun. Families who couldn't keep dishes clean started hoarding forks and spoons to avoid contamination or illness from reused items. Plastic cutlery also helps in unexpected ways. It prevents sharing critical during viral outbreaks. It allows meal packaging essential in community kitchens. And it boosts psychological stability, especially for children who need a sense of normalcy while eating. The setting size bins, usually 120 to 500 pieces, give you flexibility. They're sealed, stackable, and stay clean in storage. FEMA recommends having non-electric, water-saving food prep options, and that includes safe, disposable tools to minimize disease transmission. In shared living or field conditions, plastic utensils are easier to distribute and dispose of without requiring sanitation equipment. But when panic hits, these bins are often overlooked at first, then fought over once the water's gone and dish soap runs dry. People start pulling apart party supplies. Even restaurants report missing utensil packs from takeout orders. Want to prep smart? Buy a couple of heavy count boxes. Wrap them in waterproof bags and tape shut to keep clean. Store in kitchen cabinets, car trunks, and go bins. Rotate lightly if needed, but don't rely on restaurants or stores to just have some when the grid fails. Because when eating becomes survival, the person holding the last clean spoon always wins. Number 7. Metal street orage cans. When disaster strikes, everything fragile breaks but metal holds. That's why one of the most underrated, rarely discussed, but wildly valuable post-collapse items is the humble metal storage can, especially the 5-liter size paint cans with tight sealing lids. These cans are rugged, reusable, stackable, and designed to hold liquids or solids safely over time. Originally built to store chemicals, stains, or paint, they're engineered to withstand pressure, temperature swings, and physical impact. And when the system fails, those features make them indispensable containers for survival. Most people think plastic buckets or jugs are enough. But in many collapse scenarios, wildfires, prolonged heat waves, grid shutdowns, plastic becomes a liability. It warps, cracks, and melts. Metal doesn't. These cans can store fuel, carry potable water, preserve dry food, or even act as mini cooking pots over open flame after thorough cleaning. In the 2021 Beirut fuel crisis, when gasoline was being rationed by the liter, people started trading in old paint cans, reusing them to store petrol or kerosene. Same in parts of Ukraine during the blackouts, families stored fire-starting fuel and cooking oil in sealed metal cans because it was safer, more stable, and easier to transport without spilling or spoiling. You can also use them for high-value barter items: coffee, tobacco, sugar, or flour. The cans block light and moisture, extending shelf life. Their tight lid keeps rodents and bugs out, a huge deal in crisis zones. In makeshift shelters or bug-out locations, these cans serve as tool bins, mini trash holders, even improvised toilets when lined and sealed. The real kicker? Most hardware stores don't stock them in large quantities. They're specialty items. And when collapse hits, people realize they need anything metal that seals. That's when you'll see arguments in the aisle over a can that cost $5 a week earlier. And let's not forget their tactical value. They're opaque, no one sees what's inside. They don't crack like glass or melt like plastic. They can be buried, hung, or stored in cars without degrading. FEMA doesn't list these directly, but in their field logistics guides, they reference rigid, sealable, pest-resistant containers, which these paint cans match perfectly. In many relief zones, military and aid groups use metal drums or cans for distributing high-value goods to reduce spoilage and spillage. If you prep smart, grab a stack of unused paint cans, the kind sold empty with new lids. Clean them thoroughly, label them, and store dry or sealed essentials. Because when it comes down to it, the guy holding a few sealed cans can cook, trade, store, or survive, while others fight over brittle plastic scraps. You've just seen 7 of the most overlooked dirt-cheap items that'll become weapons of desperation when the shelves run dry. Not luxury gear, not fancy tools. Just everyday things that will cause real fights over real needs in real time. And here's the truth. By the time the crowd realizes what matters, it's already too late. But you're not the crowd, you're ahead of it now. That's the kind of edge we're building here. This channel isn't about panic. It's about preparation with precision, breaking down the psychology, the patterns, and the blind spots that history keeps exposing every time systems collapse. So if you're the type who doesn't wait to be told what to do, if you want to outpace the panic and be the person others look to when chaos takes over, then hit that subscribe button right now. Not just for you, but for the people who'll end up depending on you when things fall apart. And if this video opened your eyes, give it a like. It tells the algorithm this is the kind of real talk more people need to hear. Most importantly, share it with someone who still thinks being prepared means just storing a few canned beans, because what's cheap today becomes priceless tomorrow, and the smallest item might just save the biggest day.